Have you ever tried to make life obey your plans? Ethan Ward did. Every pencil on his desk pointed in the same direction. Every minute of his day scheduled like clockwork. To him, control wasn't just a habit, it was survival. But that morning, the city outside his glass tower trembled beneath rain and horns, chaos pounding against his perfectly drawn world. His phone buzzed, missed calls from his daughter's school, his wife's final text, "We can't do this anymore." For a moment, he just stared. The man who planned everything hadn't planned for this. His reflection in the glass looked back like a stranger. What if control was just another word for fear? What happens when the order you worship starts falling apart before your eyes? By afternoon, Ethan's life looked the same on the outside, but something inside him had cracked. He sat in his car, staring at nothing, the windshield wipers moving like a metronome for his unraveling thoughts. He could build towers that kissed the sky, yet couldn't hold together a family. A horn blared behind him. He hadn't noticed the light turn green. For the first time, he didn't care. The perfectionist was drifting, lost in a life he'd designed too tightly to breathe. At home, silence greeted him. The walls, once lined with family laughter, felt colder. A note waited on the counter. Short, kind, final. He didn't read it twice. He just folded it neatly, as if control could make it hurt less. Then he noticed Ava's drawing pinned to the fridge, a stick figure family holding hands under a yellow sun. But one figure was fading, colors smudged by a drop of water. Maybe that was him. The next morning, he didn't plan to fight. He planned to work, control what he could. But fate doesn't follow calendars. At the office, a heated argument erupted over a delayed project. Words turned sharp, a pen flew, and when it ended, so did Ethan's career. At least for now. The board suspended him pending review. All those years of perfect plans, undone in a single heart. 2 weeks later, he stood before a judge in a silent courtroom. His temper had cost him everything. Job family, peace. Instead of jail time, he was assigned community service at the downtown youth center. He nodded stiffly, unaware that destiny had just placed him in the path of a boy who would change his life forever. The first morning at Hope Street Youth Center smelled like paint and old wood. Ethan stood at the entrance, clipboard in hand, his expression carved in stone. Kids ran past him laughing, their sneakers squeaking against the floor. He checked his watch twice before stepping in, uneasy in a place where schedules meant nothing. Behind the reception desk, Maria Hernandez greeted him with a smile that could melt ice and disarm pride. "You're the architect, right? Good. We could use a little structure." Her words carried warmth and quiet humor, but Ethan didn't catch the joke. All he saw was a room out of order, a world he couldn't control. "Come with me," Maria said, guiding him down a hall lined with hand-painted stars and crooked art. They stopped outside a small room filled with color and noise. "This is the art room," she added, handing him a paint-stained apron. "You will be helping Leo today," Ethan frowned. "And Leo is—" Before she could answer, a small voice piped up from inside. "I'm right here." He turned and froze. The boy's cloudy eyes stared past him, not at him. And yet, somehow, Ethan felt completely seen. "Hi, Mr. Ethan," Leo said cheerfully, his brush waving dangerously close to Ethan's shirt. "Want to help me paint a sky?" Ethan hesitated, staring at the boy's blind eyes. "You can't even see it," he muttered. Leo grinned. "I don't need to see it. I can feel it." Ethan looked around at the messy floor, the half-open paint cans, the uneven lines on the wall. To him, it was chaos. To Leo, it was life. And for the first time, Ethan didn't know which one was right. Oh, an hour later, Leo had turned the floor into a battlefield of colors. Paint streaked his cheeks. Laughter echoed off the walls. Ethan stood with a rag in one hand, trying to restore order that never stayed. "You're getting paint everywhere," he muttered. Leo smiled, dipping his brush again. That's the point, Ethan sighed, surrendering the rag, and finally sat beside. For a moment, he stopped fixing, just watched. The blind child painted skies, more alive than anything Ethan had ever designed. When it was time to leave, Ethan found himself standing by the door longer than expected. Leo wiped his hands on a rag, then tilted his head toward him. "You sound tired," he said softly. Ethan blinked. "How do you know?" Leo smiled, his blind eyes facing nowhere and everywhere. "Because you breathe like someone trying to hold the sky still." Ethan wanted to reply, but words failed him. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like control. It felt like truth. The next morning, Ethan arrived early, too early. The center was quiet, sun barely peeking through the windows. He set out brushes in perfect rows, lined up paint bottles by color. For once, the room felt ordered. Then Leo arrived, humming, his cane tapping rhythmically. Within minutes, the brushes were out of place, the paint lids gone, and the quiet replaced by laughter. Ethan's chest tight. "You're undoing everything," he said sharply. Leo chuckled. Maybe it needed undoing. The boy turned toward him with a grin that didn't need eyes to see straight through him. Later that day, Leo wanted to paint a rainbow by sound. "Every color has a sound," he said. "Blue sounds soft, like rain. Red sounds like drums." Ethan frowned. "Colors don't make sounds." Leo laughed. "Then you've never really listened." For the first time, Ethan didn't have an answer. He picked up a brush, hesitated, then followed Leo's lead. The boy guided his hand, showing him how to paint what you feel. For a man who only knew rules, it felt like walking blind, and it terrified him. By afternoon, the canvas looked wild, colors clashing, shapes unplanned. Ethan felt uneasy. "It's a mess," he murmured. Leo turned toward him, his tone soft. "It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be alive." Ethan stared at the chaotic colors, heartbeat loud in his ears. Maybe this boy wasn't blind at all. Maybe he just saw differently. The thought left him quiet, shaken, and strangely free. After cleanup, Leo insisted on teaching Ethan his favorite game. Trust steps. "You close your eyes, and I'll tell you where to walk," the boy said, giggling. Ethan hesitated. "That sounds unsafe." "That's the point," Leo replied. The boy's laughter filled the room as Ethan finally obeyed. Each step felt like falling, until he realized Leo's tiny voice never let him hit the ground. For the first time, Ethan let someone else lead. That night, Ethan sat in his car outside the youth center, hands resting on the steering wheel, engine off. For years, he'd been building walls around work, around love, around himself. But today, a blind child had walked straight through them. He looked at his paint-stained palms, then smiled faintly for the first time in months. Maybe control wasn't safety. Maybe it was just fear wearing a suit. The next day, Ethan's phone rang non-stop. His company wanted him back for a project review, his chance to restore the image he'd lost. He put on a fresh suit, polished his shoes, and left early, telling himself this was what mattered. But as he passed the youth center, laughter echoed from inside. Leo's laughter. It lingered like sunlight through clouds. For a moment, Ethan slowed down. Then he drove away, convincing himself he didn't need it. Yet something inside him whispered otherwise. The meeting didn't go as planned. His designs were questioned, his temper slipped. The boardroom air thickened as words turned sharp. "You've lost your edge," one executive said. "You're distracted." Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to fight back but found no strength. For the first time, control felt heavy, not empowering. The world he built was turning on him, and he didn't even care enough to defend it. He left the building without a word, walking through the rain as if it could wash everything off. His tie hung loose, his shoes splashed through puddles. He didn't know where he was going, until he found himself back at the youth center. Inside, Leo was painting alone. When Ethan entered, the boy turned his head instantly. "You sound sad," Leo said softly. Ethan knelt beside him. "I thought I could fix everything." Leo smiled faintly. "Maybe you don't have to." As the rain drummed outside, Ethan finally broke. "I ruined my family, Leo," he said quietly. "I tried to make everything perfect, and I pushed them away." Leo set down his brush, placing his small hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Then start again. Don't fix it. Just love it." Those words hit harder than any punishment, any failure. Ethan's chest ached, not with anger, but release. Maybe this was what letting go felt like. Later that evening, Ethan stood outside under the rain, face lifted to the sky. No umbrella, no phone, no plans. Just breath and water and light. He thought of his daughter, of Claire, of all the things he'd tried to hold too tightly. He finally understood. Life wasn't something to manage. It was something to feel. He smiled through tears as thunder rumbled, whispering to himself, "I'm ready to start again." The next morning, Ethan arrived at the center without his usual stiffness. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his steps slower, lighter. Maria smiled knowingly. "You look different," she said. He laughed quietly. "Maybe I'm tired of fighting everything." She handed him a blindfold. "Then today, let's see how it feels to let someone else lead." Ethan frowned but took it. "Trust steps," she said with a wink. Leo's idea. His heart skipped. He wasn't sure he was ready, but maybe that was the point. Leo waited for him in the art room, swinging his cane like a conductor's baton. "Ready, Mr. Ethan?" Ethan forced a smile. "Do I have a choice?" "Not really," Leo said, grinning. As Ethan tied the blindfold, darkness wrapped around him. He felt the ground shift beneath his certainty. "Just listen to my voice," Leo said softly. "I won't let you fall." Ethan hesitated, his breath shallow. But then, step by step, he began to walk into the unknown. "Step left," Leo whispered. Ethan obeyed. "Now right, now stop." His heart pounded, palms damp. He couldn't see the walls, the floor, the space that used to feel safe, only when he controlled it. But somehow, Leo's voice steadied him. "What do you see?" Leo asked. Ethan almost laughed. "Nothing." "Try again." Ethan paused, listening to the hum of light, the air brushing against his skin, the faint scent of paint and sunlight. "I see everything," he finally said. Minutes passed in silence until Leo said, "Okay, now let go." Ethan opened his hands, realizing he'd been clenching them the whole time. "Why does this feel scary?" he whispered. Leo smiled. "Because you're not holding anything." Ethan exhaled shakily. The air felt lighter. For the first time in years, his body wasn't braced for disaster. The control head carried so tightly began to slip away, and it didn't hurt. It healed. When Ethan finally removed the blindfold, the world glowed brighter than before. The same messy room now felt beautiful, because it was real. He knelt and hugged Leo, pulling him. "Cleo, for what?" "For showing me how to see." In that moment, Ethan knew this boy hadn't just helped him find trust, had helped him find himself. And for once, Ethan didn't need to control that feeling. He simply let it stay. Days passed, and Ethan's world grew quieter, but lighter. The youth center became his second home. He painted beside Leo, fixed broken chairs for Maria, and laughed more than he had in years. One afternoon, he caught his reflection in a paint-splattered window. The man staring back wasn't the same one who measured life in straight lines. He looked alive. When Maria walked by, she smiled. See? See? Even masterpieces need mess. Ethan nodded, realizing she wasn't talking about art at all. That evening, Ethan found the courage to visit Claire and Ava. The apartment felt smaller than he remembered, quieter too. Ava peeked out from her room, hesitant. Ethan knelt, holding out a small canvas painted with Leo's help, splashes of color forming a messy but radiant heart. "It's not perfect," he said softly. Ava smiled shyly. "That's why I like it." In that smile, Ethan saw forgiveness, unspoken, gentle, real. Over the following weeks, Ethan began sketching again. But this time, not for clients or deadlines. He designed playgrounds, open parks, and spaces where mistakes could breathe. His lines weren't rigid anymore. They danced. "You're different," Claire told him one afternoon, standing beside his sketchbook. He smiled. "I think I finally stopped building walls." She looked at him for a long moment, then simply said, "Good." Sometimes, forgiveness sounds like one small word. One Saturday, Ethan took Ava to the youth center to meet Leo. The boys' laughter echoed through the hall like music. Ava painted beside Leo, describing colors to him as he guessed the shades. Ethan stood back, watching the two of them create a world he never could have designed. It hit him. This was life's real architecture. Not blueprints, not control, just connection. That night, Ethan sat by his window, the city lights flickering like stars. He thought about the boy who couldn't see, yet helped him see everything. He opened his sketchbook and wrote 5 words under a simple drawing of a sun. Let go, live, begin again. For the first time in years, the future didn't scare him. It felt wide open, like a blank canvas waiting for a messy, beautiful masterpiece. Months later, the city gathered under a sky streaked with evening gold. Ethan stood before his newest creation, an open-air community park built around imperfection. The paths curved unevenly, the benches mismatched, the murals wild and human. "It's beautiful," Maria said softly beside him. He smiled. "It's supposed to be." The park wasn't flawless. It was alive. And for Ethan, that was finally enough. As speeches ended, Ethan saw 2 familiar figures approaching. Ava running, Leo following with his cane tapping gently. "We made it!" Ava cheered, tugging Leo's sleeve. Ethan knelt as they reached him, his arms wide. The 3 of them hugged amid the noise of celebration. "I told you it'd look amazing," Leo said, grinning. "You can't even see it," Ava teased. Leo laughed. "I can feel it." And that, Ethan realized, was the truest kind of sight. Later, Leo asked to walk through the park alone, with Ethan guiding only his words. "Tell me what it looks like," the boy said. Ethan described the colors, the laughter, the crooked benches, the sunlight spilling across uneven stones. When he finished, Leo smiled. "It sounds perfect." Ethan's voice cracked as he answered. "It's not." Leo tilted his head. "Then it's real." And that was all Ethan needed to hear. When evening fell, Ethan sat with Ava and Leo beneath the park's largest mural, a painting they'd all made together. It was messy, wild, full of fingerprints and laughter. "You know," Ava said, "it's not even." Ethan chuckled. "Neither am I." Leo leaned back, grinning. "That's what makes you real." The 3 sat in silence, watching the lights flicker on. No control, no fear, just warmth, color, and life, exactly as it should be. As the night deepened, Ethan looked at the stars through the park's open roof. For the first time, he didn't need to plan tomorrow. He simply breathed, his heart full of everything he once tried to control. "Thank you," he whispered. To Leo, to life, to the chaos that made him whole. Sometimes losing control isn't the end. It's the beginning. Would you still try to control everything if you knew the universe already had a plan?